Tell me a little bit about the marketing arm of Group Dentistry Now. How does that work? How does someone plug into that, and what's some of the benefits that come along with that?
Yeah, so I think it's kind of a two-part, right? So there's the industry partner side of it, and then there's the DSO side of it and the marketing there. And again, I'm a big fan of, you want to call it storytelling, content creation. It's super important. So stick with the DSOs, since we've been talking about the DSOs first. I would say on the DSO side of things, it's a lot of what you're already talking about, Gary. So it's really creating stories. So we do a couple different things. We'll work with groups to create stories for the recruitment side. So we talk about the individuals, and we can target, hygiene. We can talk about clinicians that are working there, and then again talk about career path, because there are a lot of docs that may get involved that may not want to be in the chair for the next 20 years of their lives. They may want to look for some upward mobility. And so, you kind of think about that, and you're like, no, we just want somebody to do the clinical work. But you need to create other opportunities for them. And maybe it is clinical, but they're mentors. And, maybe they're mentoring 5 locations or 10 locations, or maybe there's a clinical director opportunity where they can evaluate products. So there's a lot of things even on the clinical side, and same thing for hygienists as well and dental assistants. There's the education piece. You've got a DSO, you have multiple locations, you have turnover, so you have to continually educate. So we create stories kind of related to that for the DSOs, and then we talked a little bit about it on the affiliation side.
So just pausing really quick, if I'm a DSO and I come to you and say, hey, I want some help around this, you'll help them craft those stories. Is that right?
So we can, or we work with other partners that will craft the story for them. Some are big enough where they can actually do that in-house. And then the other thing, kind of more at the top level, at the top co, just really creating some branding for the DSO itself. We work with a lot of DSOs. We have an emerging groups to watch, which is kind of a pretty big deal now. We actually, for the first time, we were so happy to be able to do it, finally hand out awards. So we have a list every year, and we have an editorial board. So the editorial board kind of looks at all the applicants. Editorial board's a mix of DSOs and people that are industry partners, and kind of vote on the top 10 of the year, and then just really do a blowout article and talk about the culture there and how many locations and the struggles and the aspirations.
That's really
cool. That's become kind of a thing, which is great. So that's at the top level. And then we also look at the people, and we have DSO influencers that we highlight. So that's really the marketing side of it. And on the industry partner side, I'll touch on it briefly. But really what we want to do is anything that we create for industry partners has to be relevant to DSOs. I mean, there's a lot of content out there. I would say the majority of the content that industry partners create seems to be it's heavily tech-focused or heavily clinical. And we're like, well, DSOs are a little bit different. Depends on who's listening to it. Not that clinical's not important, but let's talk to the audience. And that's probably one of the biggest challenges I've found, is trying to get the marketing teams at some of these big dental companies and say, we've got to change this. It doesn't have to be completely reworked.
You're not marketing to patients.
You have to tweak it a little bit to message the audience the right way. So we work with industry partners all the time on how to do that. And that's a lot of fun. A little frustrating depending on who you're working with. But for the most part, you can kind of just tweak it a little bit to resonate with the DSOs. And the DSOs appreciate that because they're being talked to by an industry partner that knows the way they operate. So I think that's super important.
I love that. That's so good. You're bringing so much value to the space, and really where we're at. And this goes back to what we originally started talking about. Is I remember when about 10 years ago, 15, maybe but 12 years ago, it was kind of like having a website and spending a lot of money on that website as a dentist was kind of like, why should I do that? And there was only a couple people doing it, right? And they killed it. They did great with it. But most people were like, no, I don't want to spend money on that. I don't want to spend money on Google reviews. And kind of there was a lot of resistance to that. But now it's just common knowledge that this is the bare minimum that you need to do to even be in the conversation to be a dentist in the day and age that we live. And I see the same thing happening now as we move through the employer brand and the HR versus marketing. How are we going to get this information out there? And there's a little bit of a resistance. I don't think because people don't want it. It's not like people don't want to do it. It's just, how do we do it, right? What's the right way to do it? So huge opportunity there. If you haven't figured out that you shouldn't be doing just B2C, but you need to be doing B2B as well, I think you guys are a great option to be able to help them with that.